The war ended not with a scream, but with silence. Cities cracked open like old bones. Oceans boiled with glassy stillness, and the night sky above Earth glimmered with wreckage that would never orbit again. The Council of Nine, the galaxy's most ancient and self-assured power, had deemed humanity too volatile, too adaptable, too dangerous. Their solution was swift extermination, fleets of fire that rained judgment until nothing stirred. And then, satisfied, they left. They should have checked their work. Captain Mira Cade sat alone in the command chair of a hollowed-out mining station on the asteroid Calyx 7. The chair was far too large for a frame, the controls retrofitted with human wiring and alien crystals that glowed faintly like veins of fire. She had once commanded a fleet cruiser. Now she ruled a handful of refugees hiding in tunnels carved by machines long abandoned. Her shoulders sagged under the invisible weight of memory, but her voice, when she chose to use it, was still iron. "Report," she said, not lifting her eyes from the jagged map projected across the console. Red markers dotted the solar system where the Council's fleets had scoured everything human. Only their station, tucked into the shadow of a dying asteroid, pulse green. Across the room, Jules Ortega was elbow-deep in a pile of alien scrap, muttering curses in 3 languages, 2 of them dead. His hair stuck out in directions that suggested electricity had opinions about him. He glanced up, smudged cheek lit by a crystal's glow. "Report? You mean aside from the fact that our power grid is held together by tape, hope, and the universe's lowest standards? Yeah, things are peachy." He pulled out a sparking conduit and yelped when it bit his fingers. "Peachy and mildly electrocuted." "You'll live," Mira said. "Now if the Council finds us." Jules shot back. "Or if this thing blows before I finish patching it." A soft laugh echoed from the communications alcove. Amira Singh leaned against the bulkhead, her long hair tied back in a rough braid, her hands stained with ink from the ancient journals she carried everywhere. She was a poet before she was a specialist, and she still had the strange habit of treating survival as if it were a story waiting to be told. "Every time Jules shocked himself," she said lightly, "I'm reminded that humanity endures through sheer stubbornness. Maybe that's our secret weapon." "Great," Jules muttered. "Death by stubbornness. I'll write the epitaph myself." From the shadows, a 4th voice broke in, rough, sly, and far too amused. "If we're talking epitaphs, make mine say, 'Here lies Rook, who died richer than the rest of you.'" The man who stepped forward wore a patchwork jacket of stolen fabrics, and a grin sharper than a knife strapped his thigh. No one knew his real name. Rook had been smuggler, thief, and occasional con man before Earth burned. Somehow, he looked as if extinction were just another job he'd been hired for. Mira didn't bother to hide her distaste. "We agreed to ration supplies. If you've stolen from the storehouse again—" "Borrowed," Rook corrected, raising his hands. "And you'll thank me later when my borrowing buys us passage through places you don't want to imagine. Or when it kills us," Jules muttered. "Details," Rook said with a shrug. Mira closed her eyes for one steadying breath. This was her crew, an engineer who believed duct tape counted as divine intervention, a dreamer who saw poetry in ashes, and a thief who never met a rule he couldn't twist. Hardly the makings of a rebellion, yet they were all she had left. The console flickered. A transmission intercepted. Faint but unmistakable, whispered into the room. Alien syllables rasped in the guttural cadence of the Council, but Jules was already scrambling for his translator rig. The words spilled out in cold, mechanical English. "Humanity exterminated. Record complete. Threat neutralized. The Council may resume its deliberations. The galaxy is safe." The silence that followed was heavier than the asteroid around them. Amira pressed a hand to her chest, as if steadying the echo of her heartbeat. Jules swore softly. Rook chuckled under his breath, though the grin never reached his eyes. Mira rose from the chair. For the first time since the Council's firestorms, she felt something burn hotter than grief. "They think it's over," she said. "It mostly is," Jules replied too quickly. Then, catching Myra's glare, he added, "Unless you've got a plan." Mira stepped closer to the others, her voice low but steady. "We're ghosts of them now, shadows in their blind spot. That gives us time, and time is all humanity ever needed to adapt, to fight back. Rook leaned against the wall, folding his arms. Captain, with respect, there's a difference between haunting and winning. Haunting's easy. Winning gets you killed. Maybe, Mira said, but if they believe we're gone, then every strike we make will be a reminder. Every breath we take is proof they failed. Amira's eyes shone. They wanted silence. Let's answer with a chorus. Jules groaned. Fantastic. A suicide mission, but poetic. He paused, rubbing the back of his neck. All right, but if we're doing this, I'm going to need parts. Lots of parts. Preferably ones that don't try to set me on fire when I plug them in. Rook's grin returned. Now, that sounds like my department. Mira looked at them all, mismatched, maddening, alive. For the first time in months, she felt something like hope stir beneath the scars. Then it's decided, she said. The council thought they killed humanity. Let's prove them wrong. In the dark void beyond the asteroid. Council fleets drifted, their hulls gleaming with the arrogance of empires that believed themselves eternal. They did not look back. They did not imagine ghosts could strike. But in the heart of Calyx, 7, for survivors, and the ragged dozens who followed their lead, began a plan. The galaxy would learn soon enough. Humanity's silence was not surrender. It was the pause before the answer. The hidden station buzzed with restless energy, the kind that came before storms. Captain Mira Cade stalked the central chamber, boots striking against metal grating patched with mismatched alloys. Around her, the survivors worked in the half-light. Some carried crates of scavenged supplies, others hunched over terminals with weary focus. All of them looked to her for direction, though most avoided showing it. Leadership, Mira knew, was rarely about inspiration. It was about being the one who refused to flinch. We can't fight them head-on, Jules Ortega said, perched on the edge of a console like a crow on a wire. His hands danced as he sketched shapes in the air, diagrams of circuits and engines that only he understood. Not yet, but we don't need to. We just need proof, intel we can use, something that shows where they're weak. Mira folded her arms. And where do you propose we find this proof? Jules's grin was half mad, half proud. A relay station. The council uses them to transmit fleet movements. If we crack one open, we'll know how they think, where they go, and maybe, just maybe, why they fear us so much. From the far side of the room, Rook whistled low. Bold. Stupid, but bold. You know those stations are guarded by drones with better aim than you've ever had, right? Jules jabbed a finger in his direction. Says the man whose career highlight involves hiding in crates labeled toxic waste. Worked, didn't it? Rook shot back with a smirk. Mira let their bickering run its course. Arguments were proof of life. Then she cut in, her voice sharp as a blade. Enough. We need information. If a relay station is the only way, then that's where we'll go. But we do it my way, fast, quiet, and precise. Amira Singh, who had been silent until now, raised her head from the journal balanced on her lap. If we take their words, we should also take their voice. Show the galaxy what the council hides. Her tone was calm, almost musical, but her eyes carried a fire that belied the softness. Rook chuckled. You want to hijack alien propaganda? You've been reading too much of your own poetry. Maybe, Amira replied, unbothered. But words can wound as much as weapons. Sometimes more. Mira studied her team. Flawed, fractious, but undeniably human. We'll need a ship, she said. The vessel they chose had no name, only scars. It was a council courier left adrift in orbit, stripped by scavengers and patched with human stubbornness. Jules spent 3 sleepless days rewiring its systems, soldering human copper to alien crystal until sparks scorched his clothes. It's ugly, he admitted, wiping grease across his forehead. But then so are we. Rook slapped the hull with theatrical pride. I've flown worse. Once piloted a garbage barge through a blockade. Smelled like burning hair, but got the job done. Comforting, Mira said dryly as she checked the weapon systems. Amira placed her hand against the ship's bulkhead, as if listening to a heartbeat. It will carry us, she murmured. That is enough. The crew bore it with a mix of dread and determination. For most of the survivors, this was their first step beyond hiding. For Myra's team, it was the first step toward proving humanity still had teeth. The relay station hung in the void like a black dagger, its spires bristling with antennae that pulsed with cold light. Automated drones circled its perimeter, their eyes glowing red as they traced rigid patrol patterns. "See," Rook whispered from the co-pilot's chair. "Better aim than you'll ever manage." Mira ignored him. "Approach vector?" "Clean, if you don't sneeze," Jules replied, his fingers flying across the controls. "I've masked our signal, as long as you keep it steady." The courier slid closer, cloaked in false signatures and raw luck. For a moment, Mira thought they might actually slip through unnoticed. Then one of the drones pivoted abruptly, sensors flashing. "Jules," Mira said, "working on it." "Jules." "I said I'm working on it." The ship lurched as energy beams sliced past their hull. Jules slammed a fist on the console, rerouting power through a circuit he hadn't tested. Sparks showered the cabin. The courier groaned like a wounded beast, but its engines roared to life, spinning them into the blind spot of the station's defenses. Rook barked a laugh. "We're alive. I call that a win." "Define alive," Jules muttered, eyeing the smoking panel. Myra's hands were steady on the controls. "We board now, quick and clean." The station's corridors were sterile, humming with alien power. Mira led the way, rifle ready, while Rook prowled behind a knife that flashed each time a drone rounded the corner. Jules darted from terminal to terminal, leaving trails of improvised code like breadcrumbs. "Security's tight," he whispered, "but not human tight. They're not expecting improvisation." "Meaning?" Mira asked. "Meaning their locks hate duct tape." Jules slapped a strip of it over a sparking conduit, and the sealed door hissed open. Even Mira allowed herself to ghost a smile. They reached the central chamber, a core of crystalline towers that pulsed with encoded light. Information flowed here in endless rivers, messages the council thought untouchable. "This is it," Jules breathed. His fingers blurred across the alien console, translating, rewriting, stealing. "Give me a minute." Amira moved closer, her voice hushed with awe. "These are their secrets. Their truths." "Careful," Rook warned. "Secrets have a way of killing people." "Then let them try," Amira said. The data poured into Jules's rig. Coordinates, fleet deployments, fragments of deliberations. And beneath it all, one revelation that made his breath catch. "They didn't destroy us because we were dangerous," he whispered. "They destroyed us because we were unpredictable. We adapt too fast, learn too quickly. They saw what we did with scraps of their tech and panicked. We scared them." Myra's jaw tightened. "Good. Let them be afraid." Before anyone could answer, alarm shrieked. The drones had found them. The escape was chaos, lit by flashes of gunfire and the sharp scent of ozone. Mira held the front, firing in controlled bursts, while Rook cut down drones with gleeful precision. Jules clutched his data rig as if it were a child, cursing every time sparks rained from the ceiling. Amira's voice carried through the comms, steady and calm, guiding survivors through panic with words as sure as any weapon. They tumbled back into the courier ship as more drones swarmed the station. Mira slammed the hatch shut, shouting, "Go!" Jules hurled the engines to life, and the ship tore free into the void, chased by red beams of fury. Only when the station dwindled behind them did Mira allow herself to exhale. "We have their secrets," she said. Rook sprawled in his chair, laughing breathlessly. "We also nearly got ourselves turned into cosmic dust." "Close calls make for better stories," Amira replied, her smile faint but fierce. Jules, still hunched over the console, stared at the stolen data. They thought killing us would end the problem. Instead, they created one. Mira looked at each of them in turn. Exhausted, scarred, alive. Then it's time we became the problem they can't erase. Outside, the stars burned bright and cold, indifferent to wars and empires. But in the small, battered ship fleeing into the dark, humanity's spark burned hotter than ever. The courier ship shuddered as it slipped from faster-than-light transit, its patched engines wheezing like tired lungs. Captain Miracade gripped the armrest and studied the planet below, a world of emerald forests and seas like dark glass. Somewhere in those jungles, a dissident fleet captain waited. "They'll never trust us," Rook muttered from the co-pilot's chair, twirling a knife between his fingers. "Humans show up on their doorstep. Smelling of extinction? Best case, they sell us out to the council for a shiny metal. Worst case." Mira asked without looking at him. "They eat us," Rook said cheerfully. Jules Ortega snorted from behind a console. "Not funny. We barely have enough protein packs for the week." His hands moved quickly, calibrating the ship's scanners. He hadn't stopped tinkering since their raid on the relay station, as if constant work kept his nerves at bay. Amira Singh closed her journal, her gaze steady on the planet below. "They will listen," she said softly. "Not because they trust us, but because they want to believe anyone can stand against the council. Fear is contagious, but so is hope." Mira finally turned. "That's what we're offering. Proof the council can be resisted, and we'll make them listen." The meeting place was a clearing carved into jungle by old artillery fire. The dissident ship, reptilian in design, crouched to the far end like a beast ready to strike. Its captain emerged flanked by guards, scaled tall with eyes like molten bronze. "Humans," he hissed, the word heavy with disdain. "I thought you were Ash." "Not yet," Mira replied evenly. The alien studied her, then the others. "Why risk revealing yourselves? The council already declared you erased. Stay hidden, and they may forget you exist." "They won't forget," Mira said. "They'll come for everyone eventually. We were just first." The captain bared sharp teeth. Brave words for a species with no home. Before Mira could answer, Amira stepped forward. She opened her journal, reading not in English, but in the alien tongue, fluent, melodic, and filled with a cadence that belonged to old poetry. The words spoke of fire that could not be smothered, of rivers that bent but did not break. The alien guards shifted uneasily. Their captain's eyes narrowed, but not in anger. "You would use our language against us?" he asked. "Not against you," Amira replied. "With you." Silence stretched until the captain let out a low rumble, something between a growl and a laugh. "You are reckless." "I like reckless," Rook muttered. "Finally, someone who appreciates us." The captain extended a clawed hand. "Bring me proof the council can bleed, and I will bring you allies." Mira clasped his hand without hesitation. "Then watch closely." The first strike came days later. A council patrol cruiser drifted near a mining belt, arrogant in its solitude. Humanity's courier ship, cloaked in scrambled signatures, waited among the asteroids like a predator in the reeds. Jules's voice crackled over comms. "Weapons ready. Mostly. 90% confidence it won't explode in our faces." 90? Mira asked. 90's a good number, Jules said. "It's practically optimistic." "Comforting," Rook said, loading ammunition with a grin. Amira's voice cut through the banter, calm and steady. "Then let us show them what 90% can do." The improvised weapon fired. A beam stitched together from alien crystals mining lasers and human stubbornness. It tore across the void, slicing the patrol cruiser's shields like paper. Explosions blossomed across its hull. On the dissident ship, watching nearby, alien eyes widened. For the first time, they saw the mighty council stagger. Cheers erupted across both vessels. Rook hooped loudest of all, slamming a fist on the console. "Beautiful. I didn't think it would actually work." "Neither did I," Jules admitted, wiping sweat from his brow. Mira smiled grimly. One ship down. Countless to go. Their victory spread faster than the council could contain it. Whispers traveled through smuggler routes and encrypted channels. The humans were alive. The council's extermination had failed. And others began to rise. In hidden sectors, species long cowed by the council found courage in humanity's defiance. Small uprisings sparked. Slave labor camps revolted. Smugglers refused tribute. Entire colonies declared they would no longer bow. Humanity had become a symbol, not by design, but by sheer refusal to vanish. Mira watched it unfold with a mix of pride and dread. Symbols inspired, but they also drew fire. The Council finally noticed. The retaliation came swift and merciless. A fleet of Council warships descended on the Allied dissidents, tearing through their outer colonies. Entire settlements burned. Refugees fled into the dark. Myra's crew stood on the bridge, the courier trembling under stress as they barely escaped the onslaught. Explosions lit the void behind them, red and gold against the black. "They're not just hunting us anymore," Jules said hoarsely. "They're hunting everyone we inspired." "That was always the risk," Mira replied, her jaw tight. Amira clutched her journal to her chest. "Then we cannot stop now. If we falter, every spark we lit will die." Rook spat a curse. "Easy for you to say. I don't see poetry in being vaporized." "Then see survival," Mira snapped. "Because if we don't keep fighting, there will be nothing left to survive for." The ship rattled violently, alarms wailing. A Council destroyer had locked onto them. Jules's fingers blurred across the controls. "Hold tight. I've got one insane idea." Mira didn't ask. She trusted him. The courier veered toward a nearby singularity, a small black hole, a remnant of a collapsed star. The destroyer followed, weapons blazing. "Are you mad?" Rook shouted. "Completely," Jules replied. "Now hang on." He fired the engines at maximum, slingshotting the courier around the black hole's event horizon. Gravity yanked them sideways, threatening to tear the ship apart. The hull screamed, lights flickered, and Rook's swearing reached new levels of creativity. Behind them, the destroyer miscalculated. Its bulk dragged too close, caught in the black hole's grip. For a moment, its weapons flashed desperately. Then it stretched, twisted, and was gone, swallowed whole by gravity's maw. Silence returned. The courier limped out the other side, battered but intact. Mira exhaled slowly. "Status?" Jules slumped back, pale but grinning. "Alive. Somehow." "Barely," Rook said, clutching the console. "Next time you want to flirt with a singularity, leave me out of it." Amira's voice was soft but firm. "You see? We survived because we dared what they would not. That is what makes us dangerous." Mira looked at her crew, exhausted, scarred, alive. Around them, the stars stretched endless and cold, but the fire in their hearts burned hotter still. "They think they can scare us back into silence," she said. "But silence is not in our nature." The crew exchanged glances. No more arguments. No more doubts. They were in this together, for better or worse. "Then let's make some noise," Rook said, his grin returning. And in the dark between stars, humanity's rebellion blazed brighter than ever. The galaxy was burning, not with fire, but with unrest. Worlds that had once bowed to the Council of Nine now whispered of rebellion. Slave species sabotaged factories. Smugglers refused tribute, and colonies declared open defiance. At the heart of it all pulsed a rumor more dangerous than any fleet. Humanity lived. On the bridge of their battered courier ship, Miracade studied the stolen intelligence spread across the console. Fleet deployments, strongholds, weaknesses. Jules had decrypted enough to map the Council's war machine. One target shone brightest, the central hub for which the Nine directed their fleets. "If we cut off the head," Mira said, "the body flails. That gives the galaxy time to strike." "Head?" Rook scoffed. "More like 9 bloated heads stacked together, each nastier than the last. Suicide, Captain." "Not suicide," Jules muttered, hunched over a crystalline device humming with unstable energy. "Calculated insanity. There's a difference." Amira touched the journal, resting on her knees. "If we strike, we must do more than destroy. We must be seen. Every world must know it was humanity that stood where others would not." Myra's gaze swept her crew, stubborn, reckless, brilliant. She had no illusions. They might not survive, but survival wasn't the only measure of victory. "Then we strike," she said. The Council hub loomed like a fortress carved from obsidian, orbiting a dying star. Towers of black metal reached outward, pulsing with energy drawn from the star's slow collapse. Entire fleets stood guard, their hulls etched with the arrogance of an empire that believed itself eternal. "Looks cozy," Rook muttered. tightening the strap of his harness. Reminds me of a casino I once robbed, only with more death rays. Focus, Mira said, eyes on the path ahead. Jules' device rested at the heart of the ship, a hybrid monstrosity of alien reactors, human engineering, and reckless imagination. It pulsed erratically, like a heart on the verge of failure. This will destabilize our command grid, he explained, voice trembling with both exhaustion and pride. If it works, their fleets lose coordination. If it doesn't, he shrugged, well, you won't have time to complain. Reassuring, Rook said. Necessary, Mira corrected. They slipped through the perimeter under cover of chaos. Allied ships, dissident fleets, smugglers, rebels emboldened by humanity's defiance, threw themselves at the Council Armada. Explosions lit the void, flashes of defiance against overwhelming power. Inside the courier, alarms wailed as enemy fire grazed their hull. Mira steered through debris fields with steady hands. Jules shouted course corrections. Rook fired wildly from the gunnery chair, and Amira's calm voice threaded through the storm, reading coordinates like scripture. They broke through. The hub's docking spires loomed before them. Mira slammed the ship into a bay, metal screeching as they landed hard. Go, she barked. The corridors of the hub were vast, lined with obsidian pillars glowing faintly with stolen starlight. Drones swarmed, weapons crackling, but the crew moved as one. Myra's rifle barked. Jules hurled improvised charges. Rook carved a path with blade and grin, and Amira's voice over comms guided panicked allies deeper into the fight. At the core chamber, they found it. The nexus of the Council's command grid, a crystalline tower humming with the voices of empires. The air vibrated with power. This is it, Jules whispered, setting the device at the tower's base. Once I trigger it, there's no turning back. Rook whistled low. And here, I thought this was going to be hard. Quiet, Mira snapped. Her eyes swept the chamber. We're not alone. From the shadows emerged the Council's emissaries. Towering figures draped in black, their faces hidden behind masks of silver. 9 voices spoke as one, echoing through the chamber. Humanity, you were a mistake. We sought to erase you, yet here you are, persistent vermin gnawing at the roots of civilization. Mira lifted her rifle. Call us vermin again. I dare you. The voices rumbled like thunder. Why resist? You cannot win. Your kind is fractured, desperate, small. Amira stepped forward, her voice steady. Small things endure. A seed splits stone. A spark ignites fire. You fear us because you know this is true. The emissaries recoiled, not in fear, but in fury. Energy crackled as they advanced. Jules, Mira shouted. Almost there. The chamber erupted in violence. Mira fired until her rifle burned hot. Rook darted through shadows, blades flashing. Amira's voice rang across comms, rallying allies across the hub. Now is the moment. Rise. Jules slammed his palm onto the device. Done. The tower screamed, light fracturing into shards of brilliance. Across the fleet outside, Council ships faltered, their formations crumbling. Allied vessels surged, seizing the opening. The emissaries staggered as the grid unraveled. Mira raised her weapon, but Amira's hand on her arm stopped her. Not vengeance, she whispered. Victory is enough. Mira lowered the rifle. Around them, the chamber shuddered as power failed. Time to go. Rook shouted. The courier tore free from the hub just as it imploded, collapsing inward under the weight of its stolen star. A shockwave rippled across the void, scattering ships in every direction. For the first time in centuries, the Council's command center was gone. On the bridge, silence hung heavy. Then Rook whooped, throwing his knife into the ceiling. We did it. We actually did it. Jules collapsed into his chair, laughing breathlessly. And it didn't explode in our faces. Mostly. Mira leaned back, exhaustion etched into every line of her face. Outside the viewport, the Council fleet broke apart as Allied ships pressed their advantage. The galaxy would never be the same. Amira closed her journal with a final stroke of ink. The Council believed humanity's death would go unanswered, she said softly. But they were wrong. We answered with fire, with defiance, with survival. Myra's lips curved into a rare smile. And we're just getting started. Later, as the courier limped into safe space, the crew gathered in the galley. The air smelled of recycled rations and ozone. Exhaustion dulled their movements, but beneath it simmered something new. Possibility. We're still homeless, Rook said, chewing on a protein bar. Then we build homes, Mira replied. We're still hunted, Jules added. Then we keep running until we can stand. We're still few, Amira murmured. Then we become many, Mira said firmly. She looked at each of them in turn. Leader, dreamer, builder, trickster. The fragments of a people thought erased. The council wanted silence. But humanity speaks. And now the whole galaxy listens. For a moment, they simply sat together, the hum of the ship their heartbeat. Outside, the stars stretched endless and cold. But humanity was no longer ash.